Good morning.
Good
I would
morning.
like to thank you for sharing your experiences through this interview. Today is May 18th, 2012. We are interviewing Robert Edward Francis, who was born on February 6, 1930. He served in the Army as a Sergeant First Class during the Korean conflict. My name is Tona Francis, and I am the daughter-in-law of Bob. We are in Piqua, Ohio for this recording, and it's brought to you by the Speaker of the House, Republican John Boehner. The interview is being conducted for the Miami County Veteran History Project in the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. The project is sponsored by Mission Veterans to DC of Piqua, Ohio. Dad, tell us about your life before the service. Where were you born?
At Hospital, Troy, Ohio.
And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
No, none. I'm an only child.
Okay, how did your father provide for your family?
He was a farmer
Okay, and where did he farm?
in Staunton Township,
And
outside of Troy.
your parents' names?
Virgil and Elizabeth Francis.
And where did you go to school?
Went to school right in the home neighborhood at Staunton Township, at Staunton School.
Okay,
All 12 years.
okay. In one building.
One building.
And did you play sports?
Yes, basketball.
Okay. So what did you do before you entered the service? Did you work somewhere besides the farm?
No, I worked farm, and I would work some on off-farm jobs in the winter time, but basically was trying to get into farming.
Okay. Where did you work off the farm?
Well, one winter I worked at Braun Brothers packing plant, beef and pork packing plant, and then I worked at Troy Sunshade, which is a division of Hobart Manufacturing, in chrome plating, nickel plating department one winter. And then one winter after I got towards the end and back, I worked at Sonson Barger's DeSoto and Plymouth Cars in Piqua, which had become a restaurant later on, and now is a church.
Huh. Were any of your other family members in the military? Any cousins or?
Yes, I had a cousin in World War II, Dewart Johnson. He was a captain when he got out. He was in the World War II.
Okay. And how did you enter the service? Were you drafted or enlisted?
I enlisted in the National Guard, and then we were mobilized in the Korean War effort, and went to our training then.
Okay. Did you choose the Army or did they place you there because you were in the National Guard?
Places there, we just went as our whole unit went. The whole 37th Division went. The infantry troops and the artillery troops and the whole 9 yards, and the engineers and everything. But when our group was activated in January, and I had to go ahead in September to go to the tracked vehicle. I was the motor sergeant, and we had tracked vehicles. Went to the tracked vehicle motor school at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I had to leave a crop in the field, and my dad and neighbors had to get my crop out, and it was kind of a real bind, but they got through it.
How many acres do you think your dad farmed before you left? Do you have so many acres you farmed there?
Yeah, well, his and my grandpa's place would be 105 acres that they farmed
Okay.
there, and then we farmed some rented ground after that.
Okay, and what did you grow on your farm?
Corn, wheat, and soybeans.
Okay. Okay, so you went to Oklahoma for school, and then where did you go?
Came back home, and we packed the stuff up at the armory to ship to Camp Polk. And then I remember the day we had to take everything, we had to drive those Caterpillar tractors with the rubber treads on them, drove the cats and the artillery pieces and the trucks and all to Lima, to the tank factory where they had loading facilities, and loaded them on flat cars to be shipped to Camp Polk.
Okay. And that's where you were headed to next then, Camp
Yeah,
Pope?
and then I was ahead drove down, I had my own car and drove down ahead in the pre, the first group to get the place ready for when the troops come in.
Okay.
We had to get the buildings all opened up and ready and supplies set in and got it set up.
Okay.
So I was on the advanced detail, they call it.
Okay. And then when the troops got there, then you started training with your rifles
Started training into, actually, had to go through basic infantry marksmanship and training along with our artillery work.
Okay. And how long do you think you were there? Was it 6 weeks or?
You know, it was from January till is like June, I think, and I was on the first. They had started shipping units out. They had in the Korean War they had shipped a National Guard unit from California and someplace else into Korea, and they got clobbered pretty good. So they decided not to ship them as units. They would be individual shipping levies, and I was on the first levy to be shipped out.
Okay.
And I came home, had like a week or 10 days, and then flew to California, went through Camp Stoneman, and then the Camp Stoneman was outside of San Francisco, went down to Fort Mason and boarded the ship. And when we left, we sailed out under the Golden Gate right at sunset.
Had you ever been on a ship before?
Not before, no.
A lot of seasickness?
No. It was rough for the first 2 or 3 days out. They told us it would be, but we survived it. But she would roll from one side to the other, and the screws would come out of the water, and then they chomp, chomp, chomp. When they come back in, it was rough riding.
Wow.
But and then we got to Japan. He landed there at Yokosuka or Yokohama. We went to this the fort there that they had where they dispatched the troops from. And I was standing there reading off local orders, and I wasn't paying hardly any attention because I thought she was going to Korea. We'd already had drawn our carbines and had zeroed them in on the rifle range. And we was waiting to see where we was going, and they had a local order called me for this amphibious tank and tractor battalion, and I was sent there just south of Yokohama in Yokosuka at Camp McGill.
Okay.
56 amphibious tank and tractor battalion, and that's the patch of them. And I was to be the battalion motor sergeant.
Okay. How was the barracks life? Was that easy going or hard because you were a single?
Oh, it was just kind of, you just learn to live with it, or just learn and roll with the punches. But it was different there. We were in a old Japanese seaplane base, and so we had facilities to the water for our tanks. And the supply room and the mess hall and everything was all inside the barracks.
Okay.
So it was different. And at Camp Polk, you had the barracks, and then you had your supply room, and then you had your mess halls all separate.
Okay, but you were all in one then?
Oh, yeah, big 2-3-story barracks, 2-story barracks, yeah.
Huh. Did you have any social life while you were in any of the camps?
Not to speak of. While we were there, I'd had a story. A lot of my buddies went with us to Camp Polk that we knew. One of them happened to be, got good friends with your dad, Walt Felber. And I got a picture of him here. Him and I was out one Sunday, and we went to some war memorial down in Louisiana. And I'm not sure what the name of it was, but we was seeing that, and we used to run around quite a bit together. And Marvin Shoup went with it. He was a cook, and he was in the mess hall. I soon learned that the name mess hall was appropriately named. And so then like I said, I was levied out and went over there. And while in Japan then, I got pictures here of a friend of ours that was the supply sergeant at Battery C when we were mobilized, Glenn Landis. And he was sent on, he'd been in Korea, and he come back to Japan on what they call R&R rest trips. And we visited, and we got together and went to Tokyo and Yokohama and seen all the sights around there. I got pictures of him.
Okay. So, what was your specific duty when you got there?
I was a battalion motor sergeant, head of the maintenance of the amphibious tank and tractors, and they were totally different to me. I was trained on the Caterpillar, the tanks that we had. They're built by International Harvester and had the rubber tracks around the road, pulled the howitzer. But these were propelled by the Grouser treads. They didn't have a screw like the Ducks did, and they were a totally different thing. They had a 7-cylinder aircraft engine in them, and we was the head of maintenance on that. I was a battalion motor sergeant, and I soon learned that when I first got there, just 2 or 3 weeks before I got there, they had maneuvers, and there's about a dozen men drowned in these tractors in the ocean. When you're coming in, we're propelling along in the water, going along right, that we soon found out how it worked. And as soon as those treads hit the sand, it just pulls that engine down, just like right now it'll kill it, unless you can grind about a pound of steel off the gears and shifting gears and get her geared down. And that's what our driver would do. We get in, boy, he'd grind her in and he'd get her in the next gear. But if she kills the motor, the next wave will hit you in the rear and flip you over. And these guys was trapped in them. And we had one guy in our outfit there that he never had to ride one after the experience he'd had. He was trapped in it, and he seen the thing raise up a little bit, and so he watched. The next time it raised up, he dove out under it and got out and saved himself. We wore life jackets when we were in them. Had these inflatable life jackets. But boy, they were a death trap. There's only 2 outfits of them in the Army, one there at Camp McGill, Japan, and one at Fort Ord, California. And you don't hear about them anymore. I don't know what they're doing now, but they were a treacherous thing to ride in.
Sounds it. I show you were in the service from September 1950 to 1953 in the summer. Is that
Right.
correct? Okay. Do you have any stories you might want to tell us about your time in Japan?
Oh, a lot of different things. I know one thing that you don't realize till you have to do it. I had to take the battalion wrecker out one Sunday afternoon. A Jeep got disabled with one of the officers in somewhere up around towards Yokohama, and I had to take the wrecker up there and get it and tow it back. And when you're in Japan, they drive on the left side of the road instead of the right, and of course with a left-hand steering wheel like our military vehicles was, it's a real pain to drive and get around safely with steering wheel on the wrong side and that kind of driving. It was totally different when you wasn't used to it. It was a real challenge. And then I've got pictures of Mount Fuji. We took a drive up there one day with a whole battalion of caravan of vehicles to acquaint drivers with the new vehicles they just got in, and it was kind of a different trip getting to see that and see all the sights getting up there. But it was a typical mess from Camp Polk. They've got these new vehicles with the 24-volt batteries, and when you pull the dipstick out of the GMC trucks, if you wasn't careful, if you hit the battery terminal, it melted off. And they were constantly, and you couldn't get them. It's just like give you a blank look when you go and try to get parts. We had a terrible time to try to get parts, and it didn't have their act together. And the guys would be, every time you go, and then when we get ready to go to the field on maneuvers that day, and you get down there, and if your vehicles was down, then the officers was on our case. So it was just a constant battle keeping parts. It was mainly like carburetor adjusting screws on the Dodges and the dipsticks on the GMCs. People would constantly steal them at night from other outfits. So our duty then was to tell our guards that were working guarding our stuff that night what parts we need, and that was their job to secure parts for us. So it was a real left-handed deal.
But parts weren't easy to come by.
No, they're terrible. You just order them, you just get nothing, get back orders. You just get, and the vehicle be down, and the officers be on your case. So we just had to leave orders with the guards what parts we needed there every night, and it was a constant hassle.
Well, then you didn't see any action or witness any frontline?
One time they had when they went into Incheon, they had two groups out, and the other group went in. We didn't. We was the decoy group, and we did not go in, but we was on the decoy of that. So then we come back to Japan.
Were the Japanese pretty friendly there?
Yeah, they seemed pretty friendly. I've got pictures here, different things there around the base and everything. Here's a picture of the headquarters and a picture of these amphibious tanks. It shows how the grousers are that propelled them in the water, and one thing that was interesting. We were where we had our maneuvers was near Kamakura, and supposedly that is their Hollywood. But there's a huge, by Kamakura, a huge Buddha there, and I got pictures of that, stamped pictures of it, a huge statue where they go there as a shrine to worship. And it was a different thing. I don't know where the pictures are of that now. But,
So do you have any off-duty pursuits other than going to Mount Fuji and into town? Or did you ever go boating or?
No. One time we went boating when we was out in the tanks and maneuvers, and it was a hair-raising thing, riding them things. It was a different thing. And the reason it's called Tank and Tractor Battalion, there's two companies of tanks and two companies of tractors. And the tractors had their end gate that went down the rear, and you could haul a Jeep in them, or infantry troops. And that would be the tractors deal. And the tanks then were, just as the word says, they were a tank and had the artillery piece on, and would fire on the bulkhead going in.
Did you have any friendships that you formed or camaraderies while you were in the service?
Oh yeah, just starting to mention, there's a lot of guys that are good buddies. Good buddies.
So
Yeah.
when you went to Camp Polk, you knew people from home, but when you
Right.
went to Japan, there wasn't anybody over there that.
No.
Okay.
There was one guy in our outfit that his brother had been in our guard outfit here at Piqua. He's from up by Quincy, and you got to know him. And his brother had been in our outfit here, but all really different.
Did you receive any mail from back home, from family or friends?
Oh yeah, I got letters all the time from folks at home.
Was that something you got daily or once a week, or how'd that work?
I can't recall how often. I know it wasn't daily, but it'd be like at least every week or bi-weekly.
Any other stories you might want to share about the service?
I think about it is it's totally different in Japan by being in their old seaplane base, and the barracks were different and everything. But different scenery, just a total different world. But the main thing, boy, it was sure tough to drive on the wrong side of the road with the steering wheel on the wrong side of your vehicle.
So how did you get about? Did you ride a bicycle sometimes?
Yeah, I just around camp there. I got a picture of it. I don't even recall riding it, or whose bike it was even. But mainly just around we went on USO trips sometimes on Sunday. You go on the bus and they take trips out and we get to see different things. But we've had foreign visitors here since back here on the farm through Farm Bureau, and they were adults that had different jobs in foreign countries. And one become a real good friend was John, was from Japan, and he was a teacher in the school of the blind over there. And he went over to Columbus and seen how they'd done things at the School for the Blind in Columbus with Ohio State University. And they'd come here on weekends and visit. And we visited him, and then later on years he lived in Salt Lake City, and we visited him there, him and his family there. But we had a visitor here. One of the visitors here was from South Korea, and he thanked me for saving their country from them, for them.
How nice.
But the whole thing is, it's a kind of a sad disappointment to me, the whole thing of all the sacrifices we made and not to mention the guys got hurt and killed over there. And then they turned around and they didn't solve anything in the end. It's still a split country. And they got that pipsqueak for a dictator, and he died, and now his son's taken over. And supposedly they've got the atomic bomb, so they're still a threat to the world. So it, for all the sacrifices we all made, it really, the diplomats blew it in the end somehow, and it didn't solve it.
Yes.
It's very discouraging.
Where were you when the war was over? Were you still in Japan, or were you sent back home, or can you recall?
I think I was back home, but I'm not sure just when it was over.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you get home?
And we come home by troop ship again from Japan, but into Seattle Tacoma seaport. We did not fly.
Okay. Was the ride home on the boat or the ship any different than on the way over? Other than you knew you were going home?
Yeah, you had a better outlook coming back.
I'm sure.
And but and then we flew to Fort Sheridan, I believe Fort Sheridan, Illinois, to where I was discharged. But there it was a hassle to prove to. I said, well, they was trying to put me in the Army Reserve, and I told them I'm already in the National Guard. I still had time left on my enlistment, and I had quite a hassle there, but I finally got it through their heads, and they found the paperwork that proved it, and so I sent back home. And then I spent served the rest of my time out. Made full 6 years in the National Guard.
Okay.
Second 3-year enlistment.
Did your family know you were coming home?
Oh yes,
So they were there at the airport when you got there, or?
I presume, I suppose so,
Okay.
Flew back into Dayton.
Okay.
And at that time, I've got a picture in here. One of them was, we flew through O'Hare Airport in Chicago, which is out of date today. It's all, O'Hare Midway Airport. The old airport was called Midway, and back in those days.
Yeah. How was the reception by family and community? Did you feel welcomed when you came home, or?
Oh yeah, everybody felt welcome.
Good. How was readjusting to civilian life? Was that hard, since you really hadn't seen a whole lot of war?
Just
mechanics wise?
Just glad to get back to it, and I didn't have to put up with the mess hall. And we did, when we got to Camp Polk going down, one of the fellows had come back from Korea that lived in Florida, and his name was Earl Blackburn, and he become real good buddies of ours, and Paul Luis was in our outfit too, and him and I, we'd visit with Earl, and Earl would come up here and visit with them, and he just passed away this past winter, but he's a real good buddy.
Good. So you'd made contact with fellow veterans over the years.
Right.
Did you join any organizations, veteran organizations?
No, never did.
Okay. Too busy on the farm. Is that what you did when you came home then? Farm?
Right,
okay.
Right, back farming.
And did you get married then,
Yeah,
once you got home?
Got married after we got back home, and so we had a real happy life and farming and doing what we want to. And I was supposed to show you my sewing kit I have in the Army. I don't remember ever using it. But
Okay.
I'm not a very good seamstress yet.
Okay.
So if something breaks, it's tough. But then I had, after being back, the kids all made this book for me for my 80th birthday. 5 generations on a farm.
Okay.
And then it's got my Army pictures in here from back there in the Army days and everything, and all my farm pictures. And I appreciate that. They worked a lot of work making this book. It all works out good. And then on Memorial Day, I put my old John Deere, I got an old antique John Deere tractor that I drive in the parade in Fletcher for Memorial Day parade every year.
Okay. And when you got back and got married, what's your wife's name?
Barbara, she was a Bowman, Barbara Francis.
Okay. And did you have any children?
Yes, 3.
And their names?
Jeff is your husband. Be Jeff was the first, and Pam was her Pamela Sue Goodson, and Jeff, and then later on came Matt, and he's married and lives in California. He's a professor at Berkeley, And they just recently, last this Christmas Eve, they had a little baby boy, and they're coming home to visit with us in about a week.
And does Pam have any children?
Pam has one daughter and lives in New York City.
Okay. And Jeff?
And Jeff and Tony have a daughter and son, Brian Francis, and he farms with it. He's the next generation in. We all farm together, and then Bridget, she is works over there with she's been associated and just got her master's degree from Ohio State, and works with landscapers and planting stuff in Columbus.
Okay. And how do you feel wartime experiences affected your life, or do you feel that they did?
Oh, I'd say just not a whole lot. It makes you appreciate more what you got back here at home. And
Any life lessons learned?
it probably makes you learn to be more of an individual and figure things out on your own more.
Makes you grow up some, you
Yeah,
think?
it makes you grow up some,
Okay. Well, let's look at some of your other pictures you have here.
Another thing, this lamp here is coming down pretty fast. I sent that home to my mother from Japan. Bought it over there and had it shipped home. And then, of course, we've got it out. She's gone. We've got it now.
And you have a jacket from when you were in the
Yeah,
service?
I got a jacket made over there. And sent some other things home. And along that jacket, they dropped my suit, my trunk got dropped in the ocean when they was loading it in Japan, and ruined a lot of stuff. A lot of it was all moldy and mildewed, and really made a mess for us.
I show you have some Japanese money.
Yeah, I got some here. I guess they call it yen.
Okay.
There's some there. This military script, military money here.
Okay.
And these some Japanese coins.
Okay. And then here's a picture of you with your family, your mom and dad and aunt at home.
Right,
And then one of your father.
Father driving an old John Deere tractor.
And then when you went off to service.
That's when I went off to service, yeah.
And then you on your bicycle.
Yeah, that wasn't my bicycle.
Or someone's bicycle.
Someone's bicycle is over in Japan.
Okay.
That was at Camp McGill.
And then this is the church you were at?
Yeah, that's the church on the camp there at Post Chapel at Camp McGill.
Okay, and this must be when you got your stripes.
No, just relaxing in the barracks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you have some manuals you kept.
Yeah, I got these old manuals. This is the M4 tractor, which is what we pulled the artillery pieces with.
Okay.
That we drove clear to Lima and shipped to Camp Polk.
Okay.
And then here's their maintenance manual, driver's manuals from the Army.
Okay. Was that, you had to have that with you at all times in case you needed something?
No,
To look
I
up
don't know,
something?
just had that by being a supervisor. You had to teach classes and stuff. You had to refer to manuals and stuff like that.
Okay, you have some pictures over here on the other side.
That was here. Oh yeah. There's a picture of that huge Buddha at Kamakura. Just Glenn Landis and I when he was in Japan, and another picture of me on a bicycle. And then we had our 60th reunion last winter.
Okay, you want to show me the front of that?
Yeah, here it goes.
Cover?
If I hold the plastic cover up, it'll be plainer. There we go.
Okay. 60th anniversary
Yeah,
of your National Guard group.
you're right. Our group that was here when we mobilized, and there's pictures of us in here. We met at the American Legion Hall there in Piqua. And there was,
Is that from out of your book?
that's pictures of our outfit when we were mobilized.
Okay. All right.
There's a picture of our group,
Your unit?
unit at Camp McCoy, Wisconsin.
Okay.
That was the last summer. That's right before we got our mobilization orders to go in full time in the Army.
Okay. Any other pictures? Do you have a current picture of your group that showed up for your reunion?
I'm just looking for it here. You know where I
Okay.
put it a while ago.
Not sure. I remember you had it in an envelope.
I had it in an envelope.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
You had several. I think there were at least 10 of them of you showed up from your National Guard group.
Yes,
Yep. I think we took all the pictures out of that. Well, I know where it is. It's right here.
Yeah, there it
There's
is.
the newspaper one.
Yeah, that was in the newspaper there. And there's a bunch of us in there with our wives in there at the American Legion Hall. And your dad was one of them.
They had a good turnout, didn't they?
Good turnout, And Chuck Alexander and Chuck Staley.
Paul Staley?
Paul Staley was the kind of heading it up. They done a good job on it
Yes, they did. That's the first time you'd been together with all of them, isn't it?
for a long while. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we had a group here at our house, at the other house here, several years ago when Earl Blackburn was still alive, and he come up and Paul Louis Schwimmer and a bunch had all of them that could come in for supper that night and visit.
Nice. Well, is there any other stories you might want to tell us about your service time or anything in
Just trying to
particular?
think, just a lot of good experiences and a lot of things that made you kind of wonder.
Yes.
And but it did disrupt your life quite a bit, and you kind of pretty displeased at the way they left it end up just hanging there, and the Korea is still split, and they got the atomic bomb and that dictator around it. It's just still a mess.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you for your service and thank you for sharing your experience today, Dad.
You're welcome. Glad to do it.